Hello and welcome to another podcast. It's Ben Lister here. How are you doing? Welcome to episode 32 of the BLM Friends podcast. Right, let's crack on. As you know, each week I have my friends as guests to talk about their career or their jobs or their hobbies. So let's crack on with this week's guest. From all different radio stations and a mentor to many, it's the one, the only Paul Webber. Hi, Paul. Welcome along.
Hello, Ben. Thank you so much for having me.
How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, busy morning, but doing well.
That's good. 5 questions about your broadcast career, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You ready to rumble in the jungle?
Let's get started.
Okay, let's go for it. Question 1. Where did you start your broadcast career?
Wow. I started, Ben, back in 1988 and worked at Taunton Hospital Radio and did a show on there, and I was chairman for a year as well. And then it was in 1989 that I heard about Orchard FM setting up in Somerset. And it was a brand new radio station. It had never been broadcast in that area before. And so I applied. And here's the funny thing. When you apply for a job at a radio station, they normally ask you to send a tape in of your work, all right? Now, because I'd only done hospital radio before that, I said to them, well, surely everybody's going to be doing that, aren't they? And they said, yeah, of course, that's the way you do it. So I said, well, here's a different thing. How about you come down and listen to my radio show at the hospital radio station, and then you can judge for yourself. And that's exactly what they did. And then I was lucky enough that 2 weeks later, they sent me a letter saying, congratulations, you've got the job. So that was really good. So 1989 was my first job in commercial radio.
Brilliant. Where was it?
Sorry, go on.
Where did you start?
That was in Taunton in Somerset.
What station?
Orchard FM.
Nice. And is that station still about today, or has it become a capital or a Bowers station or a global station? Sorry.
I think it became a global station. So yeah, it was one of those that got swallowed up by the takeover at that particular point. I've got several different dates here and different stations that I've worked at. Would you like me to go through some of those for you?
Your podcast, so go for it.
It's your podcast, but thanks for having me. Yeah, so after that, in 1994, I did some freelance work for GWR FM in Bristol. And then in 96, I managed to get onto the breakfast show at Choice FM in Birmingham. Now, obviously, they had a London branch of that as well, but I was in the Birmingham one doing breakfast for about 6 months on a short-term contract. And then moved to GWR in Swindon in Wiltshire, did the breakfast show there, 97 to 98. And then moved up northeast, so you'll know all about that. 99 to 2000, I was at TFM in the northeast doing drive time. Okay. And then, believe it or not, I've moved all over the country, back down south again, Ben. And this time, 2001 to 2004, I did the breakfast show at Spirit FM in Chichester in West Sussex, which was pretty good. Enjoyed that. 2005 to 2006, did the weekend breakfast show at Wire FM in Warrington. So again, all over the country. But I was also doing sales there as well. And in 2006, I went to D106.3 in Chester, did sales there for 3 years, basically. And then in 2010, I worked with a number of community radio stations under the banner of Press Cap. And that was in the Northwest. That was up in Preston in Lancashire. And that was funded by the council. And unfortunately, the funding ran out. So that particular job came to an end. And then I moved down to Devon, which is obviously where I'm from originally. And then did sales for realx in Exeter between 2015 and 2017. And then 2017 to July of 2020, I was back on the radio again at The Breeze in South Devon doing drive time. And now, of course, that's been taken over by Bauer, and they've turned that particular station into the Greatest Hits Radio. Right up to date then, 2021, Zest Liverpool. I'm currently on air there. I was on air between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. initially. And now I'm doing 10 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, weekdays, Monday to Friday. I'm also pleased to let you know, there's a bit of news here for you. On the 27th to the 31st of this month, I'm going to be doing the mid-morning show and the weekend breakfast shows at Radio X, standing in for somebody that's on holiday that week. So that brings you right up to date, Ben.
Is that the Radio X down in London?
No. Radio EXEX, as in the River X, named after Exeter. Yeah, so that's it. That's in Devon. That's in Exeter in Devon.
Were they associated with the main Radio X up in London? Exeter?
Nothing to do with them at all. Completely different.
Fair enough. Question 2. Who were your inspirations in broadcasting when you were starting out?
Oh, wow. Well, before I started in radio, I think one of my heroes, and similar to you, and you've had him on one of your podcasts, was Bruno Brooks. I think he's a great broadcaster. I used to enjoy listening to Simon Bates. He's got a great voice, of course, for broadcasting. And because I grew up listening to Radio 1 back in the day, in the 70s and 80s. And so, I grew up with all of those full-time presenters that were on there then. And I used to like, let's have a look, let me think. There were quite a few that I really kind of looked up to, I guess, if you can call it that. So those were my kind of early influences and inspirations, I suppose, in starting out. And then, I listened to radio all the time, and now listen to Radio 2, and, particularly like Ken Bruce and what he does in the mornings. It sounds great. And it's, you listen to radio all the time, and no doubt you're a massive fan of Radio, Ben. So I know that you listen to quite a few stations across the UK. So yeah, we were always out for listening out for people, aren't we? And listening to how they do things.
Yeah, we are, yeah. And that's the beauty of radio. Question 3. What is your favourite part about the job in radio and broadcasting?
Wow. Favorite part about the job is basically pleasing the listener. So it's not about me. It's not about what I sound like or what my presenting style or whatever it might be. It's about the listener at the end of the day. And if you can picture that when you broadcast to someone, you're broadcasting to one person. It may be, maybe hundreds or thousands listening to the station, but you're broadcasting to just one person. And if you can picture that in your mind each time you open the microphone, then you're on to a winner. And as long as you can picture who that person is, and you create your style according to the station that you're broadcasting on.
Brilliant. Yeah. Question 4. How has COVID affected your life and line of work?
Wow. Okay, that's a big question. It affected me because I had to work from home back in March of 2020 for a few months, and that was whilst I was still working at The Breeze. So I was working from my home studio in Devon, and then obviously made redundant in the July of that year, and so went self-employed for the rest of between then and now. So it has affected how I work. I work for myself. I work in a studio, and I have a shop now as well, selling audio spares. Like cables and microphones, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, it's affected how I operate and how I work. Then that's not to say that will change over the years. Who knows? We just don't know what's around the corner. But currently, that's the situation, is that I'm self-employed, and that's how it's affected my work. Yeah.
How did you feel when you found? How long before the merger was it? The takeover, was it that you found out The Breeze was not going to be The Breeze anymore? And how did you feel at the time?
Yeah, we knew at least, I guess, 12 to 14 months before that something might happen. But, at that stage, it was still early doors, and we didn't know how it was going to affect any of us at all. And, to be fair to Bauer, they did reoffer some of the jobs that were taken away. They offered those to the existing people that were being made redundant. And so, people could apply for those. And I believe they've taken some of those on, which is great. But, we knew ahead of time that it was coming. We just didn't know when or how it was going to affect us at the time.
And who was the first person you spoke to after you found out the news?
That's a very good question. I can't remember. Probably my partner at the time. because obviously it's important to let them know what's going on with your job and everything. But it may well have been my sister, I think. I honestly can't remember, Ben. It's a good question, though.
Yeah, and you also have to think about, you might have been feeling nervous at the time to what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Last question on the list. What advice would you give to young aspiring broadcasters who are starting out?
And again, these questions are great, Ben. So, you know, what I would advise young aspiring broadcasters to do is to be persistent, but not annoying, but also be prepared to do some stuff for free, because, you know, paid jobs are few and far between in the radio industry, as you probably know. So, you know, you've got to be prepared to be able to do some work for free in order to get more experience. And then once you have that experience, you can then put yourself forward for those lucrative paid jobs. But, you know, initially, you know, do some study, look at other broadcasters, listen to what they do, listen to the style of broadcasting that they do, and, you know, take snippets of that. Don't necessarily copy, but, you know, take snippets of that and do it in your own style. Be yourself is another great piece of advice I could probably give you. Just be yourself, be as natural as you possibly can, and people will like that. They'll either like you or they'll hate you. And the good thing is that most people will listen to you, and, you know, they'll hopefully like you and like the way that you broadcast.
Yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us today, Paul.
You're very welcome, Ben. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And yeah, it's been a pleasure, and hope you all learned something. Thank you for joining me, and for one more time, please give it up for the legendary Paul Webber. Don't forget, this will be available on my Wix.com website and my YouTube channel, so stay around for that and keep your eyes peeled for that. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and until next time, as I always say, that's a wrap.